Welcome into Mock Trial Masterclass, your guide to controlling the courtroom. I'm Luke and I want you to be a mock trial master. Let's talk about how you can make that happen. I think one of the trickiest roles to play in mock trial is to be a witness during cross-examination. Because cross-examination is usually the time where lawyers have the opportunity to shine and take over the courtroom with their performance, leaving witnesses a lot of time to feel uncomfortable, on edge, and not quite know what to do. Well, I've got bad news and I've got good news. The bad news is the feeling of not really knowing what to expect on cross-examination is never going to go away because you can never know what to expect. You never know what your attorney's going to ask you because they're not on your team. And so you always have to be prepared for any kind of punch that comes your way. But here's the good news. There are some jobs you can accomplish, some steps you can take as a witness to be more prepared, to be more confident, and to start to take some of that control away from your crossing attorney and put it on yourself. So what we're going to go over in this video are some of those ways. Specifically, we're going to talk about 3 jobs that witnesses must accomplish on cross-examination. And if you prepare yourself to accomplish these jobs, and then when game day arrives, you actually do accomplish them, your scores will go up, your confidence will go up, and you're going to start to take some of that star power, some of that spotlight away from the attorney on the other team. So, you ready to hop in? Let's do it. Job number 1 for witnesses on cross-examination is to explain but be responsive. If you're a witness and your entire cross-examination is just a series of the attorney asking questions and you saying a simple yes or no, something's going wrong. Because as a witness, you have the right to explain your answers, but more importantly, if you want to score high, you need to take advantage of that right. So what does that look like? Well, you do want to initially respond to the questions with a yes or no, assuming that the answer is yes or no. So let's take the example of an attorney asks you as a witness, you bought this specific gun 3 years ago. Now you might have an explanation that you'd like to offer for that, and that's okay, but the first thing you need to say is, yes, I did buy the gun, because that way you're being responsive to the question. And a lot of times if you just start with that yes or no, simply the attorney's going to stop listening and start thinking about their next question, leaving you room to explain a little bit. Now, at that point, once you've said the yes or no, you're welcome to launch into an explanation. So maybe for that gun question, the answer is, yes, I did buy the gun for whatever reason, and then you can explain quickly and succinctly why you bought the gun. But what you can't do is fall into one of 2 traps, and that's when you start to ramble. In other words, you're almost talking just to take up clock and you're not really adding any value to the trial. Or you start to explain, but your explanation is no longer responsive. You started the explanation with that yes or no that responded to the question that was asked, but then you sort of start to tail off and enter the land of no longer being responsive, right? That's what we don't want. So explain, but be responsive. And what that looks like is starting with a yes or no, assuming you can answer the question in a yes or no, and sometimes you can't. But if you can answer the question with a yes or no, start with that, yes or no, and then explain, but make sure you're being responsive and you're not just talking to run the clock, you're actually adding value to the trial. If you can master that approach, it's going to go a long way toward boosting your score as a witness and not giving the attorney quite so much time in front of the jury. Job number 2 for witnesses on cross-examination is make life difficult for your crossing attorney. It's one thing to offer explanations to their questions so that you get a chance to twist the narrative a little bit in your side's direction and maybe take some clock time away from the attorney on the other team. But it's another thing entirely to intentionally use strategies that make life hard for the attorney on the other side. When you start doing that, that's when you know as a witness you have reached the level of being a mock trial master. So what kind of strategies fall under that category? What can you do to make life more difficult for the attorney on the other side? Well, I've got good news. There's another video on this channel that is entirely dedicated to this topic. I go over several ways that you as a witness can make life difficult for an attorney, and we do a deep dive into each of those strategies. But for now, I'll just give you a quick glance at some of my favorite ones. One tried and true way that you can make life hard for an attorney as a witness on cross-examination is to skip ahead. If an attorney is asking slow, methodical questions that are short and clearly building toward a certain point, go to that point for them. So for example, if the attorney is asking, you got up out of bed, you sat up, your alarm went off, you turned the alarm off, and you can tell, okay, they're about to ask me about me going to work that morning, just go there for them. Say, yes, I turned my alarm clock off and then I went to work. Right? You've just taken away several questions from their planned script in all likelihood, and you've made life pretty difficult for them. Another way you can make life difficult for an attorney, I've talked about this in multiple other videos on this channel, is you can just simply say no if that's the answer to a question. Now, again, you don't want to use this every time, and there are, again, most of the time you're going to want to explain your answer. But if there's an opportunity you see where the attorney asks you a question and the answer is really no, it's an effective strategy a lot of times to just say no and then stop talking and force them to dig for the explanation, because chances are they're not going to like that you said no. So those are just a couple of the ways that you can do this as a witness. Again, I'll put a link in the description of the show notes if you're listening on a podcast platform to the full episode about making life difficult for an attorney as a witness on cross. But again, for now, those are my two favorite ways to do it, and you can dive into the other ones in that other video. All right, so we've covered the first two jobs for witnesses on cross-examination, which are to explain your answers but be responsive, and to make life difficult for the attorney. We're about to hop into job number 3, but first, I want to let you know that my new book, Mock Trial Masterclass, is now available for purchase on Amazon. Guys, this book is full of tips for you witnesses out there, whether you are an expert witness or more of a kooky, zany character witness. Whatever category you fall into as a witness, this book has tips for you. If you're enjoying this video and you think, wow, this stuff is really helpful, there's plenty more where that came from in this book. There's entire sections on witness tips for cross-examination that go well beyond the ones we're talking about in this video. There's a section on witness tips for direct examination. There's even a section on how you can, as an individual, improve your performance outside of practice time. There's all sorts of information and strategies in this book, whether you're a witness or an attorney in mock trial. So if you want to pick one up, head to Amazon, click the link in the description on YouTube or in the show notes on podcast platforms. The third and final job for witnesses on cross-examination is to know your part inside and out. Now, if you watch my video on witness jobs for direct examination, you know that this one fell into that category as well. But there's a big reason why it's just as important, or perhaps even more important, for cross-examination, and that's that you don't know what questions your attorney is going to ask. Like we talked about earlier in this video, you're going to get punches thrown from all sorts of different directions that you can't plan for, you can't script for, because again, the attorney is going to be coming from the other team. So, what is your best method to combat that, to defend against those punches? It's to know your part inside and out. And what I would encourage you here is to even go beyond what's in your affidavit. Now, depending on the rules of your competition, chances are you probably won't be able to use a lot of things you learn beyond your affidavit. But number one, there are some competitions that have rules that say that if you get asked about things on cross that aren't in your affidavit or your witness statement, you're welcome to talk about those things. You're allowed to talk about those things. But even if you don't have that rule, having that deeper knowledge in your head, even if you're not allowed to, bring it out of your head and through your mouth, it's still going to be a huge help for your confidence, your composure, and your demeanor when you're on the witness stand. So here's what that looks like. Let me tell you a story about an old teammate of mine. So my first year competing in mock trial, a very long time ago, one of my teammates was playing an expert witness who was an expert in refrigerator construction and how refrigerators work. Well, what my teammate did that was so smart is he didn't just look at what his witness statement had to say about refrigerators. He got on the internet and started watching a ton of YouTube videos about how refrigerators work and why they're cold and how the chemistry of all that works. He got on Google and was pulling up diagrams and pictures. And then when game day arrived, while he couldn't spout out all of that information that he had learned, when he got questioned on cross-examination, do you know how confident he looked? Do you know how in control he looked? Because he knew in his head all of this information about refrigerators that the attorney on the other side absolutely did not know. And that gave him a massive advantage on the witness stand, and I promise it made his score shoot up. If you take that same approach, whether you're playing a refrigerator expert like he was or any other type of witness, the same thing is going to happen to you. Your confidence will go up, your composure will go up, you'll look more comfortable, you'll look more in control. And as a result of all of those things, most importantly, your scores are going to go up too. Like I said at the beginning of the video, being a witness on cross is hard. There's a lot of unexpected things you have to deal with, and you're always going to be a little bit on edge. But if you can accomplish these 3 jobs of explain your answers but be responsive, make life difficult for the attorney, and know your part inside and out, even if that means doing research beyond the case packet, if you accomplish those 3 jobs, you're going to be able to breathe just a little bit easier, pull those shoulders back just a little bit, have some more confidence, have some more comfort, and start controlling the courtroom like a mock trial master on the witness stand.